When I say Spider-Verse, you immediately think of this. The brilliant 2018 film that revolutionized animation and expanded Spidey's universe for the masses. But what if I told you that the comic seeds for this story dated back over 30 years, culminating in one of the most creative Spidey stories of all time?
A lot of carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for comics history and action figures. We are up to episode 8 in my originally planned 5-episode series on the Marvel Legends of Spider-Man's amazing friends and foes. We've been telling this story chronologically, giving you a deep dive into the creators who brought these characters to life. So if you haven't done it already, check out those videos when you get a chance. But this time we're flipping the script and looking at all the various Spider-Men from outside the primary Marvel 616 universe. Quick history lesson. While not every Marvel alternate universe is named this way, many of them take their name from the year, then the month of their first published appearance. So the primary Marvel comic universe began with the first issue of the Fantastic Four, which hit shelves in June of 1961. So 61 plus 6 gives you the Marvel 616 universe. Spider-Ham debuted in Marvel Tales issue 1 in November of 1983. The 2099 universe debuted with Spidey 2099 in August of 1992. And the MC2 universe premiered in What If 105, published in February of 1998. And so forth and so on. So with that in mind, I'm going to head back to the 1980s and our first alternate universe Spider-Man. Editors Larry Hama and Tom DeFalco were goofing around in the Marvel bullpen, talking about the possibility of Marvel opening up its own chain of comic book stores. Hey, there's Larry Hama's office right there. Hama was in the middle of his earth-shattering run on the licensed property G.I. Joe and said that the stores would need apparel and plush toys to be economically viable. To which DeFalco said, "You mean we need to come up with something like Peter Porker Spider-Ham?" They kept spitballing other characters like Goose Rider and Captain Americat. The pair even coughed up $200 of their own money to create a Spider-Ham plush doll. Editorial loved it and gave them the green light. The result was Marvel Tales, a one-shot with a play-on-words title spoofing the long-standing Marvel Tales reprint book. That book was a hit, and in 1985, Peter Porker debuted in his own title, with a spectacular cover by the legendary artist Michael Golden. The book would last 17 issues through 1987, with Porker popping up periodically in back-issue features after that. We have been fortunate enough to get several versions of Spider-Ham in action figure form over the past few years. The Eagle Moss statue and Kubrick Spider-Ham are the closest representations to the classic comic stylings, with the statue in particular capturing Golden's original cover. And we've gotten even more versions due to his appearance in the Spider-Verse film, with movie-accurate figures and Funko Pops. I've even gone so far as to get custom Mini-Mates and Lego Spider-Ham figures. Marvel Legends gave us an official comic Spider-Ham in 2017. The sculpt is really great, but the articulation is limited. The Disney Toy Box line produced a slightly more animated version, but one with improved articulation in 2020. Not bad for a character that started as a joke between friends. The next divergent universe worth exploring is that of Marvel 2099. A high-tech cyberpunk alternate future. And while characters like Punisher 2099 and a Stan Lee written Ravage 2099 had their fans, it was the Peter David Rick Leonardi creation, Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, that was the breakout star. Look, full disclosure, I'm a huge Spidey 2099 fan. But hey, I'm not the only one. Miguel has remained tremendously popular, and this has led to a ton of great action figures over the years. None of them finer than this 2015 Marvel Legend from the Hobgoblin Build-A-Figure wave. The metallic blue paint, claw fingers, and sharp red details are essential to capturing the look of Miguel's Day of the Dead inspired costume. Miguel is so popular that he had a second costume design released as a figure in 2017's Sandman Wave. Next comes the MC2 universe, home of the spectacular Spider-Girl. Created by Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz, the pair who just happened to be the team on The Amazing Spider-Man when I first started reading comics, Mayday Parker is the teenage daughter of Pete and Mary Jane Parker. This lovable character combined the best of her outgoing, charismatic mother and her intellectual and duty-bound father. May was so loved, her comics staved off cancellation numerous times, becoming the longest-running Marvel book with a female lead. Despite all of this, Mayday has been woefully underrepresented in the action figure department. In 1999, she was included in the 8-inch Famous Covers line of cloth-costumed action figures. This line harkened back to the 1970s Mego figures, and May was a standout with a removable mask to reveal her 90s bob underneath. That same year, she had a Previews exclusive 5-inch figure with great sculpt and articulation. And that was it. For 16 years. But Mayday Parker would celebrate that Sweet 16 with this terrific Marvel Legends figure from the Hobgoblin wave. A fitting tribute to a character who just wouldn't quit. The nation of Japan is going to place a couple of characters on this list, with the first dating back 5 decades. While the official Marvel Mangaverse first appeared in 2002, illustrator Ryoshi Ikigama retold Spidey's origin in Monthly Shonen magazine all the way back in 1970. 30 years later, Care Andrews created a ninja Spidey who was the last of the Spider Clan after the death of his Uncle Ben at the hands of Venom. Andrews' vision came to three-dimensional life in 2002's Spidey Classics line, with an incredibly faithful representation of his artwork. Sadly, the Toy Biz engineers must have been hitting the sake because the unique articulation on this figure makes any kind of realistic posing virtually impossible. Not all of our alternate universe Spideys are heroes, however. You might have heard of Robert Kirkman from a couple of little comics-turned-TV shows like Invincible and The Walking Dead. But before becoming a veritable king of all media, he wrote a 5-issue Marvel Zombies miniseries. In it, Peter Parker remains racked with guilt, but this time not over the death of Uncle Ben, but because after becoming a zombie, he ate Mary Jane and Aunt May. Marvel Select's 2007 figure captures the horror of a zombified web-slinger in a way that no mass-market figure could ever accomplish. In fact, this figure may be too good. You might have noticed that Disney made Spidey a zombie hunter in What If instead of a flesh-eating monster. The Marvel Noir universe features 616 counterparts who debuted in the 1920s and 1930s. In this dimension, a Depression-era Peter Parker fights crime and Nazis as the Spider-Man. This figure appeared in the 2018 Lizard Build-A-Figure wave, sporting that dreaded Nick Fury trench coat which limits his posability. The head sculpt is spot on, and he comes with a gun and a holster. I tend to display this figure with a custom hat that allows him to look more like his SpiderVerse animated version. So with all these different Spider-Men floating around, what could possibly bring them all together? The answer, it turned out, was a video game. Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions was a third-person action-adventure game released in 2010, where you could play as one of 4 Spideys: 616, 2099, Ultimate, and Noir. The game was a hit, but perhaps more importantly, it was written by comic scribe Dan Slott, who would go on to expand on his ideas of a Spider-Man multiverse in his 2014 epic SpiderVerse storyline. Slott's SpiderVerse Arc attempted to bring together every version of Spidey from across all forms of media in an attempt to fight the vampiric Morlun. While all the Spideys that I've mentioned thus far made the book, several new characters made their debut in this series. Spider UK was one of the lead characters in Spider-Verse, and as Billy Braddock, he is one of the few characters that is not an alternate version of Peter Parker or his close friends and family. Created by Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez, his costume is a perfect blend of Captain Britain and Spider-Man. Another hugely popular creation from Dan Slott and Olivier Coipel is Spider-Punk. Rocking out of the Earth-138 universe, Hobart Brown was a homeless teenager who led a rebellion against his universe's evil president, Norman Osborn. This figure also came in 2018's Lizard Build-A-Figure wave and is filled with little details that set it apart, like the buttons on his tattered jacket and the guitar pick in his right hand. The Super Mech Suit SPDR was built by the father of Penny Parker. While barely appearing in the comics, Penny and her lovable suit would go on to huge stardom in the Spider-Verse film. But the design was so cool that Hasbro made it a Build-A-Figure back in 2018. And my personal favorite inclusion in the Spider-Verse, Japanese Spider-Man and Leopardon. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know my love for Japan's version of Spidey. Thankfully, Dan Slott shares that love, as he included Takuya Yamashiro's hero in the fight against Morlun, and he brought his giant robot with him. Bandai produced this fantastic die-cast metal version of Leopardon in recent years. And in 2021, Mafex gave us this super posable 6-inch figure of Japanese Spidey, complete with his signature wrist communicator. Fun fact, at the climax of Ernest Cline's Ready Player One novel, the lead character chooses Leopardon as his mechanical suit for the final battle. Sadly, this was switched to the Iron Giant for the movie version. But the breakout star from the Spider-Verse comic was none other than Gwen Stacy. Co-creators Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez utilized her backstory to help design her look. As she was introduced as a criminal, falsely accused of the death of Peter Parker, the team decided to go with the hoodie to make the statement that clothes don't make someone a criminal. But it was also a visual reminder of her brooding, tortured personality. But they still wanted her to stand out. That's why they used the flat white against black bodysuit, creating the silhouette of a spider across her torso. And finally, they wanted to make her fun to draw, so they limited the webs to just highlights inside the hood and under the arms. That's a pretty thorough lap around the Spider-Verse. But before we go, I've got one more surprise in store. Yep, get ready to see this bad boy coming to a video near you very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and that notification bell, and subscribe to Carbon Scoring so you won't miss any of the fun we've got coming up.